Hello, and welcome back to another Fishy Plant Man production. Please forgive my background there. I kind of wanted to highlight this plant, and the monsteras behind were kind of taking away from it. So, this is the best I can do on short notice because, well, the video is quite late yet again. I've been busy. That's all I can say is I've been busy. So yeah, that's Yankee cardboard, but it does help the plant pops. So forgive my Yankee cardboard, apparently. That's a professional term because I say so. Yankee. Anyway, this is the schefflera. I thought I would feature it today. I kind of love to hate this plant. It's very temper, temp, yeah, temperamental. I think that's what I was trying to say. Lots of times they will say, let a plant dry out and then give it a good drink. Well, if this thing's roots get too moist, it forms ugly little brown spots. And I'm afraid that if I gave it a good drink, quote unquote, a good drink, the whole thing would just turn brown and die on me because the roots would stay wet too long. Hence the terracotta pot. It's ugly, but yeah. I'm also thinking of putting some of the shamrock that's in one of the rubber trees. I had its name. It's a variegated rubber tree. I do like variegated. Not everything needs to be variegated. Matter of fact, very little of my plants are. But like the schefflera, the natural one might be a little easier to care for. It might not be as fussy with the water. I noticed that with the rubber trees. It's like a maroon rubber tree over in the eastern window, but it's just, the green leaf. And then I've got another one which doesn't have any purple tinge to it, although I think that's a light thing. And it doesn't have a problem. Now, granted, they're both feet over the variegated one, but the two that I will call normal don't have issues with these overwatering spots. The variegated version, the one variegated version that I have, does. And I think it's just part of variegation makes the plant a little more complicated. So I think if I got the normal version of this schefflera, at least color-wise, it may grow better because it can photosynthesize properly and be less fussy. However, unlike the Monstera adansonii, which I agree with some others, that just the vibrant green is good. Yeah, I don't want the variegated version of it. I don't think. If I found a good one, I might take it. But I'm not disappointed with just the normal adansonii. Or even just the normal Monstera deliciosa. Although I think I would like a variegated version of it. It's just such a huge plant when it grows up. Although lots of plants are huge when they grow up. Um, I think I'd probably take, those big leaves could hold variegation quite nicely. This, I'm not fond of the normal. I've seen it a couple of times. I held out for the variegated, and I'm kind of happy, sad that I did. The normal one, I think, would be easier to care for. Normal green leaves that can photosynthesize properly. How could it not do better? But even the umbrella thing, I think if it was just green, it would be boring. The ones I know that are just green are more boring. Most of them are more impressive because they're bigger, but it's just a bigger, boring plant. I think it's worth it. This one's temperamental and grows slowly, but I think it's worth it. It's got, here's a boring one, very little, and it needs dusted, but very little variegation on that umbrella. But then you look at, say, this leaf on this umbrella, and it's, 99 point something white. Okay. But it does have a couple that have none, so it can, photosynthesize. But this set is highly variegated. Here's an interesting one. Up here, this I would say is a very interesting one. Here's one that's all but an albino leaf next to an interesting one, next to another one that's, very nearly. But then there's quite a bit of green in these three. It's just an interesting plant. Every leaf is a bit different. It's pretty rare that you get a whole set like that that's just boring. And where's it going? I looked over the phone to look at the plant. I can't decide if some of that looks like variegation is variegation or dust. I think it's dust. I think that's a pretty boring set. But that's rare. Lots of times it does something like this. I usually don't get a whole set of highly variegated. There's two that are nearly completely green, even though there's quite a lot on the rest. But to get a complete set of, 6 sleeves, again, 2 that are pretty boring, but then the others are interesting. There's a very interesting one. So I think it's worth it. But if you get one, it might be a learning curve on figuring out the water. I don't know that I've got any brown spots on this plant right now. But over here, if I can find it, yeah, there's only 3 leaves. And it looks like there might be some spotting on that. Or maybe the leaf is dirty, I'm not sure. But, yeah. I don't cut leaves off because of ugly brown spots. I wait for the, individual leaf to die and fall off. But lately I've been pretty good on getting the water just about right. It's a slow grower and it's temperamental, but I do love it. It's probably 5 or 6 years old. Had a learning curve there for a while, but it's growing. Just not as quick as most everything else. So, I think that's 10 minutes of kind of saying the same thing over and over again. But in some ways, it's my favorite plant. And in other ways, I absolutely hate it. Yeah. Yeah. It is what it is. I did just water it. So maybe I'll tell you next week, because it won't take a week. If I put too much water on this, by next week I'll be able to tell you if it threw a fit because there's too much water. So, maybe it will get a bit of an update next week. And I'll talk to you next time.